Here we are. I think we're live. I've checked in a little bit early just to make sure everything's going okay with the internet. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's watching this. And just at the very beginning now to check if you can see and hear me okay, those who are present. Wonderful, thank you. That's great. We've got a couple more minutes before a few people will join us. Wonderful. Hello from midnight. Where's midnight? Lovely to see quite a few of you dropping in today. And I must give my apologies for our last streaming because we had such poor internet connection. I'm hoping today will go better. I've chosen a different day and a different time. We've got, unfortunately, very poor internet connection where we live. Hopefully we're going to get a tower closer to us soon, but soon could be a year or more. That's how slow the government works. But nevertheless, good afternoon, California, Vancouver, San Diego. Wonderful. So Venerable Jayasara is still in retreat, obviously, and so I'm leading this morning's session. And as I said, if there's any problems with the internet, then I'll keep the chat interface open. You can let me know. There's not much I can do at this end, however, so apologies in advance if it gets a bit frustrating. But as you'll notice, the final cut that YouTube does, if there's been problems, will filter out those blue circles. So you might get a few glitches in the replay, but it's much less frustrating to watch the replay if there has been internet issues. So that's just a tip. Lots of people from North America joining us. From the US, very good. So it must be a good time over there. What else to say before we get going? There was something else. No, I think that's it. In terms of notes before we start, we've just hit 8 o'clock. We're in the UK as well. Someone's in the UK. It must be late in the UK. Wonderful. Okay, so let's start the meditation. 11 p.m. in the UK. Not too bad for some. And Algeria. Hi, Renee. Great. It's a bit tempting to keep watching the chat. A few more people just coming in. So for now, let's come into the space for the guided meditation. So wherever you are, wherever you find yourself, it's interesting to contemplate our present time connection across the world in different times of the day, sometimes at different day, it just goes to show the relativity of time and space. It's a constructed thing. We're all connecting in present time through this wonderful phenomenon called the internet. And so we're going to take this opportunity to let go of the chat room for a little while. We'll come back and have questions at the end of the meditation. But to come into the space where you find yourself right now, wherever you are, at home or whatever room you're in, just become aware of sitting where you are, where your body is, the space, the physical space around you. We're going to connect with the body, being the first foundation of mindfulness. It doesn't mean like a preschool foundation. It actually is like the foundation of a house. It's actually always needed. And it provides a real, in a similar way, a real kind of ballast and structure for mindfulness to develop. So mindfulness of body is about becoming aware, being aware of the physicality of our being in present time. So that means awareness of the various sensations of the body. We can connect with the sense of weight, the feeling of pressure sitting on the cushion or the floor or the chair. Just becoming aware of those physical sensations. Becoming aware of the sensations throughout your whole body. It's like a cascade of various sensations. Like subtle vibration, the energy coursing through our body, the blood coursing through our veins, the heart pumping. We feel the movement of the in and out breath, with the inflating of the chest and the abdomen, and the deflating. And then we might become aware of areas in the body that feel tight or tense. So give yourself a little time to stretch out the tight places, readjust your posture to feel comfortable, all with the intention to relax. This is a time where your body can relax in one posture. So we try to make that posture relatively balanced and comfortable. And then we become more easily aware of the movement of the breath through the body. We will still be aware of mental movement, any restlessness. But more predominantly, if we're allowing the body to relax while still upright, we'll notice the movement of breath in and out. It starts to become a steady rhythm as the body relaxes. So tuning into this, becoming aware of this, will help relax the mental energy, will help slow down the thinking mind. See if you can allow your breath to relax more and more, to go more deeply. For some people, they might find initially that the breath doesn't feel relaxing, or noticing the breath doesn't feel relaxing, or if there's any pain or tension in the body, the breath can be quite shallow. So if that's happening for you, I would encourage you just to take 2 or 3 intentional deep breaths in with a very slow out breath, exhaling all the way before the next in-breath. And even if you find the thinking mind is still jumping around, just notice that. Don't be too concerned about that. You can just give a nod to it and say to yourself, or note, this is just restless mental energy. Don't fight it or struggle with it. Just notice the feeling, the experience of restless mental energy. Without going into it, staying connected with the breath as you recognize that. So whenever we get lost, whenever our attention gets sucked into a train of thinking, and we might find ourselves thinking about yesterday or tomorrow, just recognize that as past. If it's a memory, recognize, memory. If you're thinking about the future, just recognize, projecting an idea of what things might be like. And every time we recognize that, we're recognizing it in the present moment. So we can easily connect with the breath and awareness in the present. Now, in order to help still the restless mind, we need to give our attention an object to return to or to rest on. And this object is the feeling, the sensation of the breath. So every time we recognize attention has run off to somewhere else, when we wake up to that, we give it the breath sensation again, or we direct attention to recognize the breath sensation, which is always here and now in this present moment. It's an ever-changing sensation. It's a flow of sensations. But it can always be recognized in the present moment. So connecting our attention with this helps us to establish this mindfulness of the body, to let go of the restless mental energy, and encourage a calmness of body and mind in a very natural way. Very gently, this process of connecting with the breath. We don't try to force the mind. We try to let go of any judgment about what the mind is getting caught up in. And we do it with an attitude of openness, of kindness and compassion. So you'll notice that when the mind and the body starts to calm down a little, you can notice that that's actually a pleasant sensation, that relaxation, calmness, tranquility, even if only a little bit, it's a very pleasant sensation, a pleasant experience. So it's important to notice this, to bring your awareness to this and allow the body to continue to relax. Because sometimes when we're so used to following the restless thinking mind, it's like a kind of addictive process. Our attention will keep being drawn back to that because it's moving, it's loud, it's exciting, it's entertaining. Whereas relaxation and calmness doesn't grab your attention so much unless you allow your attention to follow it, to rest in it, to enjoy it. Just the subtle enjoyment for the body and the mind to relax. It's letting go of stress. So noticing this in our experience, no matter how small or subtle, it's actually really important. The nervous system starts to experience this feedback loop where calm leads to deeper calm. Often our nervous systems are geared up the other way, where excitement leads to more restlessness and more excitement and more agitation. So when we're noticing relaxation and calm, and we keep noticing that neurological feedback loop is helping to deepen the meditation. It's like watching that ocean with the waves and the wind. When the wind dies down a little, the waves become so much smaller. When the wind dies down completely, the waves can disappear and we just have this beautiful, still body of water. Gentle movement becomes more clear, the more tranquil it is. And this is just like the mind. When there's more tranquility and calm with full awareness, the experience of clarity increases. And this is just to be noticed in the increments that it is experienced. So you see that these qualities of calm and clarity, they emerge from within. They're natural characteristics of this body mind when it's allowed to settle. And it takes some time to learn how to recognize the different movements of the mind, how to recognize the ways in which we can allow the body and mind to relax, to let go, to de-stress, in order that these qualities of tranquility and clarity can emerge. Just as when the wind settles and stops, a body of water, such as a lake or an ocean, naturally becomes still. There's nothing forcing it to become still or trying to hold it in check. It's just that that restless wind has down. So the natural state of the water when it's not moved by the wind is calm, is still. And it has the ability to reflect its environment due to that calmness, this clear reflection. The capability to clearly reflect emerges or is apparent. Being interested in the mind, being interested in such innate phenomena, being interested in this process of meditative progress. This is what will help keep our attention and energy in the present and connected. To observe, to be interested, as we're plumbing into the nature of this mind. What's it made of? What is this experience of being? Usually we're so buffeted around by the winds of restlessness, mental and physical restlessness, that we just get moved. And experience a kind of well, exactly as the word is, restlessness. Not being able to rest out of that movement is tiring, exhausting. So learning what it takes to allow the body and the mind to rest out of that movement. It doesn't come by force. It can only come through this skillful application of, very subtle application of attention, but also with understanding, with wisdom, not force, manipulation, or willfulness, but with understanding how this mind works, the causes and conditions for restlessness and confusion, and the causes and conditions for calm and clarity. Well, we notice is as the mind calms a little and opens, you can start to notice also the innate spaciousness of awareness itself, the empty, open nature of awareness itself. Sense experience still comes and goes, but with the foundation of mindfulness, the mind is not moved much by that, not buffeted before. It just notices what comes, goes. Different sounds come and go. Thoughts will arise and pass. Different sensations appear, disappear within the field of awareness. And yet there is this inner space, inner spaciousness, as the breadth or the scope of this field of awareness is recognized as vast, empty space. So as we draw this brief meditation to a close, just recognize where the mind is in terms of what's happening now for you. And connecting and again with the breath sensation. Just noticing how that is. And when you're ready, just gently opening the eyes, coming back into this shared space of the screen in your own time. Noticing how you feel as a consequence of intentionally just sitting, being, and observing for a while. So that was about a 30-minute guided meditation. Which I hope was helpful for you. It's always, from this end, just an intuitive process of just settling in and seeing what is apparent, what is there. And I don't know if you heard, but I share this room with Kat, so she was snoring in the background and had a little snack, noisily eating for a while before she went back to sleep. So I don't know if you heard any of that. She may wake up to say hello a bit later. So now we have this opportunity to ask some questions. It can be about the meditation or about the Dharma in general. Anything you'd like to ask, please feel free. I'll just get some water. And also any comments on the meditation, if you find it difficult or helpful or didn't understand anything that was said, you can also ask for clarification. Yes, I want to stay here in this place. So you recognize you can access this inherent capability or characteristics of the mind. This stillness, clarity is something that emerges from the mind. It's not something you have to introduce or make happen, but it's a learning process. We have to actually engage the practice for the mind to start to learn how it becomes more stressed and how it can settle. You heard Kat? Yes, she sounded cozy and comfortable. So remember that you can always come back to these recordings. That's why we record them and have them up on YouTube, to come back to these guided meditations, because the guidance can be really helpful. Sometimes when we're just practicing alone, we've got this commentator, internal commentator, and it can sometimes just maintain a certain sense of restlessness and stress. But if we're listening to someone else, that quality of listening actually helps us move into this openness of mind, this present time openness. So that's good to recognize, this quality of listening. It opens the field of awareness. So when you go into doing meditation, try to turn your mind to the field of listening and openness as you're observing, connecting with the breath, recognizing even just little bits of calm, clarity, and space. These are really helpful things to recognize. So a lot of people are just saying they appreciated that meditation and the breath meditation. And you might have noticed too that Jayasara has uploaded a guidance on breath meditation by Ajahn Lee. So I think you'll all find that really helpful as well. Does anyone find the breath meditation difficult? Because some people can do. It doesn't work for everyone necessarily. Do you think the soul can be damaged in this life on a conscious or unconscious level due to chronic pain and chronic illness? Soul, it depends what you mean by soul, but I don't think there can be any damage necessarily, even no matter what this heart or this mind encounters. It can feel like it's really stressed or traumatized, but there's still the conditions that are playing out. The heart, the mind itself, in its deepest essence, is unconditioned and is, as Padmasambhava puts it, to paraphrase, it's like it's never been damaged by samsara. When that unconditioned state is recognized, you realize it's traveled through samsara all this time, and yet it's never come to any harm. And in the same vein, it has the essence of a fully awakened Buddha, yet it never comes to any benefit. So that's pointing to the fact that the nature of this mind in its essence is unconditioned, but it never comes to any harm, no matter what level of trauma or pain we might encounter in the conditioned experience. This can always ultimately be seen through and transcended, not in a way that it's ignored. We do have to actually take care, learn to take care of the heart, the mind that is hurting. But when we realize the essence of mind, there's such a great relief that it has not been harmed. It is not caught up in that level of reality. So I'm just going to scroll up. There's been a few questions coming in. Anyway, Paul, I hope that was helpful to mention that. Sometimes the openness feels comfortable and other times it feels frightening. Yes, so this is classic. The openness can actually be very beautiful and calming, and at some points, it can feel frightening. It feels frightening to the ego construct, because in that openness there is not the same kind of knowing of the relative mind, grasping at knowledge, which gives it some kind of false sense of security. So when the egoic mind tries to find security, it often locks into conceptual reality, even though it's not an actual secure thing at all. But ego mind thinks if I know these certain things, it has ballast and security and strength. So the fear comes up from the egoic mind. We all have to face it, actually, at some level. The fear of the unknown, the fear of death, the fear of annihilation, the fear of not knowing. But we learn to recognize that fear as something that arises. It triggers sensations. Fear can be a cause for more fear if we engage it or look at it in a particular way. But if we look at it with wisdom, if we start to notice, okay, what is it? It's a sensation in the body of tightness, the heart pumping, somehow the body sending messages to the brain that it's not safe to be here, and then vice versa, the brain will, that feedback loop that I talked about, keep telling the body, yeah, I get it, it's not safe, and then this neurological feedback loop keeps us feeling frightened. But if the wisdom mind comes in and starts recognizing, well, what is this fear? That there's sensations in the body. Can I breathe with that? Can I see my breath? Can I feel my breath together with these other sensations? And even as you come in to feel the breath, even if it's shallow and tight because of the fear, it will start to open up, because again, as I said, this breath, recognizing breath, attention to the breath, is bringing us into present moment awareness. Whereas fear is actually a mental construct. It becomes physical, we feel it in the body because of this feedback loop, but really it's originated from a kind of a mental construct, that egoic construct. So we might have to do some self-inquiry. What is it that triggers fear for us? In particular, everyone will have perhaps their different triggers. But this point of not knowing or being in the unknown, the openness feels like unknown. What is there to grasp? The ego can feel frightened. If you start to notice space as the space element, it is an element like space in the sky. We can start to notice space and become comfortable with space. Breathe with space. Even though if we go into space, sometimes we lose touch with the breath disappears. That's another point of which can give rise to fear for people. But if you recognize space as space and the awareness as awareness, then this gives a more subtle point of reference for the observing mind. Now, you might have to take a while to navigate that shift, but that's something that each of us have to do in our own meditation. I sometimes feel it's a struggle between concentration and awareness of the breath. A struggle between concentration and awareness of the breath. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by concentration here, because awareness of the breath, this is mindfulness. So mindfulness is a precursor for samadhi. Mindfulness allows the samadhi, the natural concentration, the natural stilling of the mind to emerge, as we did in that guided meditation. Now, if your idea of concentration is to use the will to hold the mind still in a certain way and block out certain impressions, then that's what potentially creates a struggle. So that's a different kind of concentration that's not necessarily helpful for the relaxation and the natural stilling that I'm talking about here, that I'm encouraging. So samadhi will naturally emerge as a natural stilling of the body and mind from this process of mindfulness. Mindfulness doesn't have to be mindfulness on the breath. If you find that the breath experience is causing some disturbance, you could try resting your attention on just the feeling of the posture, the body, the whole posture. Some people just need to shift out of the body and just maybe be aware of sound as a meditation object. Or if someone who needs to keep your eyes open, perhaps just rest your attention on the visual field just in front of you. But you need something to bring your attention back to in present time to allow that natural stilling. And when I say bring your attention back, this is very subtle. This is just a subtle shift of the rudder. There's no force involved. It's a recognition that there is this. Or if the mind's caught up in thinking or a sense of struggle, one recognizes. You can connect with the breath or your chosen meditation object, could be a mantra, in order to unhook attention from the habitual thinking or the painful sensation, whatever it might be that it's hooking into and struggling with. So I hope that helps. So the live meditation, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, Venerable Jayasara usually does it. Sorry, someone was asking how often we do this. But Venerable Jayasara is on retreat at the moment, so I'll probably do another one in maybe 2 weeks, and then I'll go on retreat, and then Venerable Jayasara at some point will come back online and offer some more guidance. How can I settle my mind in this stillness during moment of day-to-day life? Sometimes I do react and then I feel guilty about it. Well, yeah, so this is a learning process as well. We all get busier in our everyday lives and we do react. We get caught up in reactivity. If you feel guilty about it, so this is something to work on letting go. Regret is one thing and guilt is another. Guilt is a a self-torturous, an unnecessary self-torturing process that we're often conditioned into. So if we've said something out of anger to someone and we realize it wasn't helpful, obviously never is, that it might have hurt someone or hurt ourselves, we can regret that moment. We can feel regret. That's a learning. That's understanding what's been unhelpful behavior. So that can inform us and strengthen our resolve to bring more mindfulness in. But if then that turns into guilt, which is like a repeated berating, an internal berating, and this sense of I'm bad, we carry around with us, which just drags the mind and body down. Now, many of us are conditioned in this way, so it's something we have to learn to let go of. We learn to recognize it's not skillful, it's not helpful to get caught in mind states of guilt. So we have to find ways to loosen and let go. But we can recognize that regret is a helpful learning curve, but regret is something that can be recognized momentarily. Then we can learn the lesson. So we take responsibility for that, not in it as a guilt trip, but as, oh yeah, I was overtaken by anger or greed. The mind is dealing with these powerful forces all the time until we're fully awakened. So we're not fully awakened, enlightened beings. We are going to trip up. We are going to make mistakes. So we recognize that, but learn from that. That's the most important thing. We learn from that. There's plenty of times I still speak out of frustration, and my Dharma sister, will remind me that doesn't sound very good. It doesn't sound helpful if it's been frustration at someone. And I say, oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'm really sorry. So I come back, I make amends, I apologize. I recognize there's tension internally. I need to take a break or just a breath, just to stop, take a breath, reconnect with mindfulness. Yeah. But don't get too tripped up on this guilt thing. It takes some time to let go, but remember the difference between helpful regret and torturous, unnecessary guilt. So you have permission to let go of guilt. Day-to-day life, how can I settle my mind in day-to-day life? So it's about mindfulness again, and mindfulness is something that can be done in a still posture like sitting, but also in everything we do. So the Buddha encouraged us to work on establishing mindfulness in all postures, sitting, standing, walking, lying down, when we're going about our daily duties, when we're conversing with each other. So what does that mean? This is where mindfulness of the body is so helpful. As you're walking, being aware of walking. If you're washing up the dishes, being aware of the movement, the feel of the water, the washing up. Connecting with physical sensations as we're doing things is a way to keep anchoring the mind in this mindfulness of body. And this starts to build a momentum of mind, settle. But most of us are multitasking and have, working in tight time frames to meet the demands of our work life or family life. So again, just to recognize, the more you can bring your present moment awareness to recognize what's happening now. So, okay, my mind feels stressed. I'm rushing. The body, the blood, the heart is pumping harder. To recognize things as they are. If we don't recognize that, and we go straight into, I've got to make it different, when we're just adding more stress to stress. So recognizing things as they are in the moment is mindfulness. That is that first drop which starts a settling process, just recognizing things as they are. No guilt, no blame, no judgment. It's just, this is the experience. This is the mind state right now. This is how things are. And that takes just a second. And then we build on that. Sometimes we have the possibility just to stop for a few seconds what we're doing and just stand still and take a breath. One full in-breath and out-breath. And that can be a dramatic shift before we then go into the next thing. Just try it out. 1 or 2 seconds can be dramatic, and this starts to build a momentum. We can also practice walking meditation in a formal way, just walking between a couple of trees, just mindful of the step, mindful of the body, walking. And this helps establish what it feels like to have mindfulness in a moving posture. So when in daily life you're naturally walking around, going between places, it becomes more easier to establish this mindfulness in movement. But again, something to practice. The more we do it, the more the body-mind recognizes that it's a good thing. It feels good. It allows some de-stressing. Okay, what else we got here? How can we be if our mind is trying to act on spiritual teachings? I would like to simply be, but my mind ego tries to lead this process when it can't, and I can at times get stuck this way. Yeah, we're all can experience that too. So take this question inwards. How can I simply be? Some days it'll be easier to slip into this sense of just being. And some days we will recognize that the thinking mind is trying to figure it out and trying to force the mind, is trying to find, it's feeling stress. And so it's trying to find a way to get out of it or to calm down. But it does that through thinking more. And that's just like wind stirring up the waves. So first what we need to do is just, as I said in the previous answer, just recognize things as they are in the first instance, or in every instance actually, to recognize things as they are. So that means if we're sitting, we have this idea, I just want to simply be, but the mind is stirred up. So the important thing is to recognize, this is a stirred up mind. It feels stressful. You might recognize there's confusion here. So important to recognize the mind state of confusion. This is something I learned many years ago through practice, that confusion was a mental state that was really unpleasant, is a mental state that's very unpleasant, and the mind struggles against it, and it wants to think its way to clarity oftentimes, mostly to get away from this painful state of confusion. But what I've found is if you don't recognize confusion first, or the mind state that's present first, then we're always setting up a struggle because we're trying to get rid of something or to get away from something that's unpleasant. So first we recognize, how is it now? This is the way it is. The mind is stirred up. There's a feeling of stress. Maybe there's confusion or doubt, anxiety or fear. Can we recognize that just in that moment? What does it feel like? This is a very powerful inquiry. When I ask those questions, what does it feel like? What is this mental state here now? that opens the mind to look at the experience directly, without judgment. And in that mode of mindfulness and acceptance, of interest and openness, the state, the mental state, is seen for what it is, and it often just relaxes or opens or shifts in that inquiry, in that openness. Important to recognize we can't still the thinking mind with more thinking. Sometimes it seems like we can, but if it's done out of fear or anxiety or aversion, no matter how subtle these things are, we're setting up a struggle which is agitated. So there can be some thoughts which lead to the stilling of thinking, such as this thought of inquiry, like what's happening now? There is this. It feels like this. Or the inquiry, how does it feel? Bringing the mindfulness to just recognize what is. So this is the subtle territory of the Four Noble Truths, recognizing the experience of dukkha in the moment, experience of stress or unsatisfactoriness is the entry point. If we don't recognize this as it is, we end up always in some kind of struggle. So try that out, see how that goes. Okay. Okay. Great. People are understanding. And what's looking from behind your eyes? Well, that's a good inquiry question to take inwards. But make sure you're not looking for a something. Okay. Very good. Well, that we've answered a few questions, and it's good timing. People have found those questions and answers helpful. So perhaps that's a good time to sign out. I'm glad, very glad you find this so helpful. So we'll post a time and date. Hopefully, I can't tell from this end if the internet connection has been good. I only know after the video has been processed by YouTube, but it seems like it's gone well. So maybe Monday morning, my time is a good time to do this. So we might try that again in 2 weeks. So someone says, I'm taking notes. Don't worry, because you can come back to view this video and take notes then. You can always access it or download it. Great. So people are appreciating, connecting. So just to finish off on a point of encouragement with regards the Dharma teachings, just remember that life is actually a big adventure. We don't know how things are going to unfold, and every day, even though we think it's going to be a particular way, it will throw up something different. So the key to connecting with the Dharma and learning from life is openness, being open. We'll find when we're not open, where our expectations meet reality, as a point of stress. No, I don't want it to be this way. Why does it have to be this way? This is too frustrating. But every day will be different. And if we can have or develop this, allow this openness of mind and a curiosity to engage, and let things unfold, we'll find that a natural wisdom and capacity to meet things as they are, and a natural compassion will emerge from the heart. So try this out for yourself. One of the teachings of Padmasambhava that I'm always gobsmacked by is his pointing that actually the essence of this mind is a primordial openness. And for some reason it gives me such relief and joy to connect with that teaching. So I say goodbye to you all, and I'll post the next meditation. I'm thinking I'll do it at the same time in 2 weeks, and if all works for that. And go well, everybody. Rest well if it's your bedtime. Have a great day if it's your morning, or have a good afternoon and evening if that's where you are. Love to you all. Take good care for now. Bye.